So we do have a quiz coming up on Monday. My goal today is to help you review over section 7.1 through 7.3. So the first section, we are going to describe the likelihood of each event. If I could have everyone just take your pencil and I want you to draw a little cloud or circle around the word likelihood. So for likelihood, we're going to be using some words to help us with that. All right? Do you guys remember those words that we had? Let's look at the first one. The probability that an apple tree will produce grapes is 0%, which means it's not going to happen. Does anyone remember the word we talked about with likelihood? Malin. Impossible. Very good. So it is impossible for that to happen. It's a 0% chance. So remember, anytime that you see something that's a 0% chance that's not going to happen, it is impossible. All right, let's look at problem B. The probability that a cat will give birth to a boy or a girl is 50%. So there's a 50-50 chance that's going to happen. What is the likelihood? Roy?
It's like equally likely to happen.
All right, that's pretty close. Who can help him out? Sabrina?
Equally likely to or less, or like equally less?
Equally likely to, Brennan?
To happen or not happen.
To happen or not happen. All right, so there's a 50-50 chance. It's an equally likely to happen or not happen situation. Problem C, there's a 15% chance of rain tomorrow. What is the likelihood that that's going to happen? Ro?
Unlikely.
Unlikely. Okay, it's probably not going to happen. There is a small chance that it could, but it is unlikely that it will happen. So if you do not remember these different words, go back to your notes in 7.1, and there's a little graph that I gave to you so that you would know. So be sure to review that and go over that, okay? Let's just say there's one that wasn't on here, but let's say it was like a 99% chance. What's the likelihood of that happening, class? Likely, okay? It's probably going to happen. It's likely to happen, all right? So those are the words we're going to use whenever we have the likelihood of something. All right, for the next section, it asks us to write the formulas. So on your quiz on Monday, you're going to need to know the difference between these two formulas. The first one is theoretical probability. So in theory, what's the likelihood that it's going to happen? Does anyone remember what theoretical probability is? Ro?
Favorable successes over total.
Not favorable successes, just favorable outcomes over the total outcomes. All right, so then there's one more, experimental probability. Malin, what is the formula for experimental probability?
Successes over trial.
Very good. The number of successes that you find what you were looking for over the total number of trials that you tried in your experiment. All right, so now we're going to use those formulas to help us out here. Find the theoretical probability of the event and round to the nearest 10th percent. So as always, we want to go ahead and start with what our formula is. What's our formula for theoretical probability, class?
Favorable over total.
Favorable over total. So now if you want to go ahead and put that abbreviated in here, that's totally fine with me. The only time I would want you to write it out is if it was like the last one where it asks you to actually write out what the formula is. So here's what it asks us here. What are the favorable outcomes of spinning a 4? Guys, how many 4s are on my spinner here?
One.
Only one. So that's what's favorable, only one. Out of total, Journey, how many total numbers do I have?
6.
6 is correct, okay? So, guys, what's 1 divided by 6?
0.166 repeating.
Okay, so the 6 is repeating. Now remember, you want to go ahead and round it over there. We're going to turn it into a percentage. At this point, it would be 16.6%, or sorry, 0.666%, but we got to round it. Which one's the tenths place?
The one behind the decimal.
The one right after the decimal, okay? So then you look here to see if you need to round up or stay the same. What would my final answer be? 16.7%. Okay, we're kind of struggling with our rounding a little bit. Just remember, if it asks for the nearest tenth, you've got to have a number right there in the tenths position, okay? I want you and your partner to go ahead and do problem B together. All right, so here we go. We're going to start always with our formula. What's the formula for theoretical probability?
Favorable over total.
Favorable over total. Remember, favorable is how many are there. So we're looking right here. Favorable, I want to see how many even numbers there are. Guys, how many favorable or even numbers are there? There's 3 of them. What are those even numbers? 2, 4, and 6. Out of how many total?
6.
What percentage is that?
50%.
It's 1/2, which is 50%. So you've got a 50% chance of spinning an even number on that spinner. All right, for the next one, once again, we're kind of looking at this. Now we're doing experimental probability. So that means they actually did the experiment, and it is right here in our graph of spinning this spinner. So what are the odds, or what's the probability of us spinning a 1? What is my formula for experimental probability? Good job. Successes over trials. So how many times you successfully, in this case, got a 1? Looking over here at my graph, how many times did we get a 1?
41 times.
41 times, okay? So that's the number of successes. Now, it doesn't tell me anywhere here how many trials they did. Someone raise your hand and tell me, how can I figure that out? Kaya, how'd you figure that out?
Because I added all the numbers together.
Okay, so when she added all of the numbers, if you look over here, there was that for 2 had 43, 3 had 39, 4 had 37, and 5 had 40 times. Okay, so she added all those numbers together and she figured out there were 200 trials total. Looking at that, guys, 41 over 200, what would that be as a decimal?
0.41.
No, 0.205.
Okay, 0.205. We've got to change that to a percent. Now here, if you look up here, it says round to the nearest whole percent. What would that be as a whole percent?
21%.
21% is correct. All right, now the next one says, what's the probability of spinning an odd number? Once again, every time, let's go ahead and start with our formula. What's the formula?
Successes over trials.
Successes over trials. What are the odd numbers here on our graph?
1, 3, 5.
Okay, so if it helps you, go ahead and circle it. 1, 3, and 5. What should I do to all those numbers? Add them up together. How many is that?
120.
When you add that up, you were successful in getting 120 odd numbers. Over how many trials?
200.
200. What would this be?
0.6.
0.6, which is
60%.
60%. Okay, once again, it asks you to round to the nearest whole number, and that is a whole number. All right, number 5 asks us to use the fundamental counting principle to find the total number of possible outcomes. So we talked about the fundamental counting principle yesterday, which made things much easier than using that huge tree diagram. Does anybody remember what operation I have to do when using this principle? Am I adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing? Sabrina? You have to multiply them together. That's correct. So problem A says, how many different outfits can you make from 7 shirts, 5 dress pants, and 2 pairs of shoes? So Sabrina, what should I do?
Well, you should multiply 5 times 2 because it would be 10. And you already know your 10 times 7, so 10 times 7 is 70.
All right, that was very good mental math. 70. Now remember with these ones, I need some kind of units attached. Who can give me some units attached for this one? Journey.
70 different outfits.
All right, I love it. 70 different outfits. Very good, because it's asking you how many different outfits, okay? So remember, you'll always be able to look at your original problem to figure out what your units should be attached. I want you and your partner to go ahead and do problem B together. Let's see what you got. You choose between blue or pink paper, so this is the kinds of paper we have, and then you choose between what kind of colors of markers?
Black or white. Green, purple, black, or white.
Green, purple, black, or white markers. How many possible outcomes are there when you select one piece of paper and one marker?
8 possible outcomes.
Okay,
Oh.
you got 8. So how'd you figure that out? How many papers were there?
You multiplied
There were 2
times
kinds of
4.
papers, and how many kinds of markers?
4.
4. So 2 times 4 is 8. And remember, I want units attached, so what should we say?
8 possible outcomes.
8 possible outcomes is perfect. All right, so just remember with the fundamental counting principle, you have to multiply the different options together, and that will give you your answer every time. Problem 6 says to find the probability of the compound event. I want everyone to either take your red pen or your pencil and Draw a cloud around compound event. These are clue words that we want to look for. What does compound mean? Multiple, more than one, okay? So always be looking for more than one event when you see this in your directions. And then it asks us to round to the nearest whole percent. You roll a number on a number cube and you flip a coin. So those are going to be our two things, our two events that we're doing. What's the probability of rolling a number greater than 3 and flipping heads? So let's go ahead and look at this first. Rolling a number greater than 3. Row, if I look at this right here, my number cube, how many numbers are on there that are greater than 3?
3.
Okay, 3 of them. What are they?
4, 5, and 6.
Numbers 4, 5, and 6. Now that's 3 out of what?
6.
3 out of 6. So I have a 3 out of 6 chance of rolling a number greater than 3. Now I have to go on to my second event, flipping heads. Journey, what would that be?
It would be 1/2, but I know the answer.
Okay, I've got a 1 out of 2 chance. Why? Because there's only one head out of total 2 sides on the coin. So we know compound events. What do I do to the 2 events?
You gotta multiply.
Multiply them. So what do you get?
You get 1/4, so 25%.
3/12, which is a fourth, which is
25, and you change it to a decimal, or
25%. All right, so you have a 25% chance of rolling a number greater than 3 and of flipping heads. Okay, I want you and your partner to go ahead and do problem B together. All right, so let's see what we got. You roll a number cube and you spin the spinner. What's the probability of rolling a number less than 4 and spinning a number higher than 4?
3/6.
Let's look at the first one. How many numbers are less than 4?
3.
3 of them. What are the numbers that are less than 4?
1, 2, and 3.
1, 2, and 3. Okay, so the question was asked, does 4 get included in that?
No.
No, because 4 is not less than 4. Okay, Marcus, looking at the next one. Spinning a number higher than 4. How many numbers are on here that are higher than 4?
4.
No, how many are higher than 4? Bigger than 4?
1.
One number is bigger than 4 out of how many total?
5.
Out of 5. What do I do to those 2 events?
You multiply.
Multiply them together. What do I get, Jensen?
You get 10%.
Okay, 3/30 is 10%. How many of you got that? Okay, so just remember with the compound events, figure out what the probability is first, figure out what the probability is second, and then multiply the 2 together. Okay, so this is a review problem, but I want to keep us fresh on things that we've done in the past. So help me out. What's the percent equation, guys? Good job. What do I need to do now?
Change the percent to a decimal.
Okay, we are going to do that.
Circle
So
and underline.
we're going to separate it from our P, our of, and our is. That just helps us to get the information a little bit more clearly. Okay, so now let's change that decimal, or the percent to a decimal. What do I get?
0.75.
0.75. Roy, what's my of?
We don't know.
We don't know it, so we're going to put X. Sabrina, what's my is?
48.
Good job. Ro, what do I do to get that variable by itself?
You have to divide 0.75 on both sides,
Very good.
and that cancels out, and then
Jensen, what's my answer?
your answer is 64.
64. Now, do I need to put any units on that?
No.
No, because look right here. It asks what number. All I do is I just put what the number is. Okay, so the answer is 64. If I had said to use percent proportion, what is the proportion formula?
Is over of equals P over 100.
Excellent. Is over of equals P over 100. All right, so there's one final review problem I want us to do today. You go into the store, you can see something was $30, but it's got a discount of 10% off, okay? Is our price going to go up or down?
Down.
It's going to go down. Talk to your partner and let's get this answer.
How do you do it?
All right, so we are once again going to use the percent equation. Journey, what should I do next?
You don't do the 10% is not markup, so you do the other.
Okay, we want to know what percentage we're paying. If I get 10% off, what percentage do I pay? 90%. Okay, change that to a decimal.
Times $30.
Okay, and this is going to give us our total cost. Class, what's the cost of it?
$27.
$27 is correct. Okay, and then just double check. Remember, you always want it to be lower than the original price, and that is lower than the original price. All right, so listen, that's exactly what you need to know for your quiz and test next week. Don't forget, please. All right, so this is everything that you need for your quiz. Anything you guys want to say to the world?
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Post notifications.
All right. Happy studying.